Lobo is a co-founder and president of Boast.AI. And Boast.AI is a fintech platform that automates access to billions in R&D checks, credits, and innovation funding, so companies can fuel their growth while preserving equity. And Boast.AI is armed with $123 million in funding, and they're on a mission to enable innovators to change the world. So hopefully a lot of you can access some of the R&D tax credits he can help you to access. So he's going to share the art of growth in his talk, and I want to have you all join me in welcoming Lloyd Lobo to the stage. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm trying to sort this clicker out here, and I am super, super excited to share my journey with you all. I thought I'd wear these silly glasses to go with the awesome promo that was done by the host. That was fantastic. I don't think I've ever had a promo like that. I'm going to take it off right now so I don't look silly. But yeah, today's topic is more fundamentals of business. I would call it nothing fancy or no silver bullet. It's talking about fundamentally how to build a business from 0 to more than 10 million ARR. And I've had the good fortune of working at a number of companies, founding companies, failing, and then also sort of succeeding here. Awesome. So my background a little bit. Boast.AI, we bootstrapped to 8 figures before we took funding. And previous to that, I started my career. I'm an engineer. I started my career in product and growth, and then founded or on the founding team of a couple of companies that failed. And then we bootstrapped Boast to 8 figures before we took funding. We took a $23 million Series A, 23 million USD Series A, and then we did a $100 million credit facility. And so armed with all this funding, our mission is to enable innovators to become successful by giving them access to funding and resources. I call the previous companies failures because, an acquisition always isn't a success if the founding team and the execs and the company doesn't make money, right? It's a good checkbox, but it's never really a success. Success is when the founders can make money and de-risk themselves, kind of thing, right? And do bigger, better things in the future. So, I run a big community also, apart from running Boast. I run our community. It's got about 110,000 subscribers, entrepreneurs. And I always get asked this question: what is the new growth hack? This growth hack methodology is one that everyone wants to know. Like, what is the next growth hack? What is the next growth hack? Airbnb jump-started growth by cross-posting on Craigslist without an API, and they got early growth. Hotmail, somebody put it in the founders put their a link in their email saying get your free Hotmail and the account, and they got 12 million users in 18 months. But I love this quote by Elon Musk. What he's saying is more than reasoning from analogy, it's really, really important to reason from first principles. Like reason, boil things down to the simplest form and reason up from there, right? Like, what are the fundamentals of business? And that's what I'm going to share with you today, versus saying, oh, what is the next growth hack? What is the next growth hack? And I'm going to share some stories where I failed because of those reasoning from analogy, right? So ultimately, though, what does success mean? And the way I define that is like, you build something that customers want to pay for, and you keep growing that cycle. You build something that customers love and want to pay for and keep using, and you keep growing that cycle. It sounds extremely simple, but I think before we dive into the art of growth, one thing is really, really, really important to know. When are you not ready to grow yet? And I would say 2 scenarios, and these both need to be false, right, for you to go into growth. So one is if you don't have an ideal customer. That means one kind of customer coming to your product to get a specific job done. One kind of customer, one kind of job. And the second thing is poor retention. Anytime they need that job done, they don't keep coming back to your product. If you don't have that, you're going to put money in fire and burn it if you try to grow when you don't have an ideal customer and you have poor retention. I'll give you an example. Speakeasy we'd raised $6 million, and Salesforce, Bessemer Ventures, Twilio had invested, and our target market were salespeople. We're a calling tool for salespeople, meaning before the call, it tells you what to say, prepares you for the meeting. During the call, it guides you through the selling process. After the call, it updates your CRM and generates the next set of action items. When we launched it, though, because it was a calling tool for salespeople, when we launched it in the App Store, we had like tens of thousands of people sign up. And when we looked at the customer profile, they were like butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. Bernie Sanders' team was doing election campaigning. Priests were doing it, using it to do services. Taxi people were using it for dispatch. And we're like, what is going on? But we fell into this trap, and we kept investing in trying to acquire more and more customers. And that company ultimately failed, because if you don't have an ideal customer, that means people are not loyal. They don't come to get a specific job done. And the retention was really poor. But we kept investing in growth. And this is several years ago in 2015. And we failed miserably. Like $6 million went to fire, right? And so then, I wanted to talk about this whole thing. Like, what is the science of scaling here? And this is not something novel. This is, Mark Roberge, HubSpot's former CRO, talks about this a lot, right? Everything is to be done in phases. It's like dating, essentially, right? You don't go to a bar and ask somebody, marry me. You optimize for the phone number, then you optimize for the text, then you optimize for the next date and the next date and the next date. And that's how running a business is also like. Look at it in phases. If you have an idea, your first phase is customer validation. What does that mean? Can I get 10 unaffiliated paying customers, 10 unaffiliated paying customers? I'm talking in the context of a B2B platform here, right? And what does unaffiliated mean? Like, not my mom, my dad, my sister, my neighbor, but like 10 people in your ideal customer profile that are paying you. So you got your total addressable market, and you know how big that is. Now, a sliver of that is paying to try your product out. And you don't read any specific go-to-market channels there. I think the focus should be like, try to get those people to pay you. So I'll give you an example with Boast, right? We were doing it manually, and we got customers to pay us before we started building product. A good friend of mine runs this company, which is like a Canva for video, right? And before he even built the product, he put his gigs up on Fiverr, and he saw that lots and lots of people. He got about 100 people paying him to. Use the service, right? And he didn't even have a product, so he did that very manually. And many people call that the concierge MVP. And so he got 100 people paying him to create videos, and then he built a video creator because he knew there was a market. And the sales go-to-market, I think, should mainly be done by founders when you're in the validation phase. So as a founder, you're going out and selling. Ultimately, if you hire people at the validation or early stages, they're not going to be able to sell your vision. And because you don't have product market fit, if you hire salespeople when you don't have product market fit, they're going to be upset when they can't close customers or customers leave because they're not going to get their commission. So founder-led sales, validate the market, get people to try it. And the next phase is product market fit. Here, your main goal is retention. Customers, now, validation is like trying to identify one kind of customer. Product market fit is retention, right? And again, you can win at all costs here. Mainly leveraging your network referrals is a good way. If you want to do outbound, that is also good. But pick a few things that just get, like, how do I get to $500,000 to $1 million? And mostly founder-led sales. And you can maybe bring one account executive or something to augment you if needed, right? But mostly over here, you're aiming for, let me get to $500,000 to $1 million in ARR if you're a B2B company. And my big focus is retention. After that, you get to a point of channel market fit, or rather product channel fit, right? And what that product channel fit is essentially is figuring out one scalable, repeatable channel, right? And there now you're like, okay, there's a whole bunch of channels. What should I invest in to grow, right? And so that next phase is nailing product channel fit. And then once you've nailed one scalable, repeatable channel, and then now you're like building that out, then you get to a point of scale. And at scale, you're like spending 2/3 of your time just scaling what works. Let's assume like in the product channel fit phase, you figured out that I can hire SDRs and I can sell, right? So now you're scaling through the SDR AE model, and you're just adding more and more. And then you're spending a third of your time trying to figure out new channels. And that may be community, that may be ads, whatever it is. You're figuring out a new channel. That's how I would look at it. Now, validation phase is typically where you have like a seed round. Product market fit is when you raise an A. Product channel fit is when you raise a B, typically like 4 or 5 million, 3 to 5 million in revenue. And then you scale, and you hopefully you go to IPO, getting to north of like between 5 and 50 million in revenue, right? So then how do you work backwards from this? For me, always is like set aggressive goals. A lot of people don't set goals. You got to set an aggressive goal and work backwards from it, right? So for us, one of the products we launched, we said, hey, let's get to 250,000 in booked contracts in 3 months. It may seem hard, but eventually, even if you don't get there, then you can set a benchmark. Okay, you know what? In 3 months, I couldn't do this, but I can do maybe 100K. Now let me see what else I can do growing from there, kind of thing, right? The other thing I have is, start serving one audience exceptionally well with one product or service. It's very, very important. And I think you can get to 10 million in revenue by serving one kind of customer coming through one kind of channel, wanting to get one kind of product or service, right? And because the thing is, if you don't focus, you'll have a lot of confused messaging. As a small team, it's very, very hard to say, okay, you know what, my buyer is the founder of a technology company. Oh, but my buyer is also the CFO in a large enterprise. It makes it very, very hard to reach out to all kinds of people. If you want to make it repeatable, scalable, one kind of customer, one kind of value. Going back to that experience of Speakeasy, like I mentioned, we had all kinds of customers trying us out. And eventually what happened was we realized that those customers were leaving because they were not getting value from the product. And so then in a Hail Mary mode, we said, you know what, we're going to cancel all marketing and just do focused marketing. Maybe we're going to not do this app store marketing. And everyone was like, oh, no, the company is going to fail. Don't do this. We got 10,000 users. And I said, you can't draw an audience profile across this 10,000 plus users. There are all kinds, and it's very hard. And these people are churning. They're not like, it's not like they're paying us and staying for a long time. So I said, let's cut the free product and make it paid, right? And there's something to be said in the early days, pre-product market fit. It's very important to do things that don't scale, right? And this is the opposite. We were doing things at scale here, trying to get tens of thousands of users when there's no product market fit. So it's very important in the early days to do things that don't scale, like Superhuman. They do concierge onboarding. Product Hunt, it was an email list. It was an email newsletter before it became Product Hunt. So do things that don't scale, please one kind of customer exceptionally well, kind of thing. And so what happened at Speakeasy, when we shut down free and made it paid, only 300 people stuck around. All 300 people were salespeople. And it was a product for salespeople. It was a calling tool for salespeople, but everyone was using it. And then we started building products and features for them. And it was sticky and people were paying for it. Right? Yeah. So I think I'll zip through this a little bit, but fundamentally, you need to figure out who's your ideal customer, where do they eat, breathe, drink, sleep, what are the outcomes they're looking for. Customers are not looking for software. They're looking for outcomes. They're looking to get a job done. Your job is to figure out what are they doing today, what are those tasks, what are the frictions in those tasks, and how do I remove that? How do I reduce that friction and give them a delighted state? Your job is to make them a better version of themselves. Your job is to get them to an outcome. People don't care about software and dashboards and everything else. Just enable them to get the outcome. Right? And so, this is like a map I talk about is you have an ideal customer profile. Let's say it's the CEO of a technology company. Who do they fund? Meaning, what other tools they pay for? Who do they follow? Who are the influencers in the space? And what do they frequent? What events and so on they go to? So like if it's a founder of a tech company, maybe they also use like Jira, and maybe they also use GitHub, and maybe they also use Slack. So can you do partnerships with those kinds of people? Who do they follow? Like maybe they follow like Jason Lemkin, for example, and everyone else. So can you sort of maybe leverage those relationships to be seen at SaaStr and Techsylvania and whatnot. So that's the whole thing, is you need to map out the circle of influence for a buyer, and you need to touch them across those different channels. Right? Now, a perfect example of ICP mapping, my other company, Automatically, which also ended up failing, and I'll tell you the story there, is we were building a customer service chatbot. This is 2013, before the chatbot was even a thing. And we picked like two market segments. One was customer success in large enterprise tech, and customer success in consumer product goods. And I do this exercise, which is typically like an ICE score. It says market size, propensity to pay, ease of access. And I created a score, and I built 1,000 contacts for each segment, and started cold emailing them and running ads to them. And I determined like who is more likely to take a call with me and pay, and then doubling down on the market segment that works. Ultimately, the reason why Automatically failed was we made the assumption that large enterprises, we did all our customer development on large enterprises. We understood like what are the pains they're facing, what are the problems they're trying to solve, and we build a solution for them. We would ask them, hey, have you ever been in a situation where your customer service agents are inundated? What are they doing? And it went to like, yeah, it's miserable. They can't respond on time. Ultimately, like, customers start swearing at our CEO, and then it reflects badly on me as a leader. But then when we went to build the solution, we realized they use tools like, they're not using Zendesk, they're using like Salesforce and Oracle, and it's a huge security review process to get in there. And that's like the death of a startup if you're trying to launch an app. So we went to Zendesk, and Zendesk had an open API, and we built the app on top of Zendesk. But ultimately what I found out is that, while this worked in large enterprises, Zendesk customers are all less than 50 employees, and they didn't have the data for the AI to kick in. Now, if I knew then, and then we got dejected, we shuttered that project. If I knew then what I know today, I would have said customers want an outcome. So I would have basically gone to all those customers and said, hey, tell me your most frequent questions and let me program it in. And this is 2013 when chatbot wasn't a thing. But when we launched it on Zendesk, all their customers were like, hey, make this thing stop. It's responding with gibberish. And then we realized what's happening was they didn't have enough historical data for us to apply the AI to respond automatically. And so, rather than taking a revised approach, we moved on and like, as arrogant engineers, if we can't get the AI to work, let's move on to something else, kind of thing. The third thing is like validate your idea by charging for it. There's a huge value when people pay for something, right? And they, when we give a lot of free stuff in the early days, I'm talking about, right? Like once you're at scale, you can have freemium and all this stuff. But in the early days, it's important to validate your idea because people pay for it. They give you very rapid feedback. This one, again, I talk about like nailing one or two channels. This quote by Peter Thiel says, if you try many channels and you don't nail one, you're finished. But if you nail a single distribution channel, you have a great business, right? So, at Speakeasy, Hiten Shah was our advisor. And he comes in one day and he's like, Lloyd, show me your distribution, your marketing plan. And I show him something like this with so many channels. And he sinks in the chair and he goes blue in the face and he's like, burn down your damn slides. And he's like, what is working right now? He's like, this is the marketing shit list. What is working right now? And I said, doing outbound email is working. But it's not quite working. That's why we need to get customers from different sources. He's like, how many emails are you sending? And I told him, and he's like, just jam more data. It's like, send more emails, reach out to more people through the one channel rather than trying all kinds of new things, and then get to the conclusion and then scale it. And so similarly, I use the same framework, brainstorm a few things, prioritize based on impact, confidence, and ease of execution, split test, and double down on what works. We did community-led growth. We knew that we're founders and we're selling to founders. And so we started doing these pizza nights. And today those pizza nights has become into a community. We do 2 webinars a week, monthly dinners, conferences in different cities. And it's driven huge growth for us, similar to what HubSpot did with Inbound, we've done with community, right? And the next thing is get users to an aha moment right away. They should complete the core action they came to your product for. A perfect example is Clubhouse. I never wanted to join Clubhouse, but when I went to Clubhouse, as soon as I signed up for it, it looped me in with 2 or 3 friends, and all of a sudden we're in a conversation. And I didn't even realize. And I'm like, hey, do you guys all know each other? One was in Saudi Arabia, one was in America, one was, I don't know, in Sweden. And they're like, no, Clubhouse just grouped us together because they knew we were friends and we're starting to have this conversation. So like, get people to a wow moment right away and don't waste any time there. And then the last thing is make your product sticky. That means the more you use the product, the better it gets. So the more you would lose, or your user would lose if they were to leave. So examples of that is like Evernote or Instagram, right? You got your social credit. You're not going to leave. That's what makes it sticky. Salesforce or Evernote. It's like you've got so much stuff in there, and if you would leave, it would like now you gotta have to migrate all that thing. So make your product sticky through user experience data. And data is a great way. If you collect people's data through integrations and then give them insights, it's a great way to make it sticky, because I've integrated a lot of my things there and my life is here now. I don't want to move on, right? This is a little framework I use. And this is not something I invented, is the Pirate Metrics by 500 startups. Like everything should be in phases, right? Acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. And what this is saying is, don't talk about retention if you don't even have a critical mass of people signing up, right? Solve for the problem at hand. If you don't have enough signups, then you can't focus on onboarding. If you don't have customers completing the core action right away, you haven't onboarded it well, then you know right away that retention is going to be bad. Like at Speakeasy, for example, we had an onboarding problem and people were leaving, but we were so focused on driving top of the funnel that we ignored onboarding. And most founders, early stage founders, they don't focus on onboarding. Onboarding is the key step between sign up and retained user, right? It's like I go to your house and you invited me to the party, but as I walk in, there's garbage and all this stuff there and I have to fall over. Like you're going to be like, what is this? I'm going to leave. Make sure your onboarding is such a seamless experience that as soon as I come in, I experience what I came there for. And then I want to, then you try to hook me in to keep coming back, right? And that is a key function of onboarding. There's a great book called Product-Led Onboarding. It's by Ramlee John. Search that on Amazon and get it. I highly recommend it because I've seen so many companies fail that because of that one step. They forget to onboard their customer in a way that gets them to the core action right away. Right. And you need, as early stage founders, you need to keep tracking this, right? This is the most important thing. You gotta track your customers in some way or the other. Awesome. And so then finally, in closing out, pick an aggressive goal, understand your customers' jobs to be done, one kind of customer, one kind of value, one kind of channel. Validate your idea by charging for it, focus on one distribution channel at a time. And once you acquire users, get them to that aha moment right away and make your product sticky. Ultimately, like I talked about, think about everything in phases. First phase is validation. Get people to try your product and pay you for it so you can get feedback, then get to product market fit, focus on retention, then get to product channel fit, figure out one repeatable, scalable channel, and then you get to scale where you're spending 2/3 of your time like investing on what's working, and you spend 1/3 of time trying to figure out new things. And that's the path you need to take in a very methodical way. Ultimately, if you build a product that people love and want to pay for, you'll build a big company. Don't focus on funding. Focus on building a great product that people want to use and pay for. The funding will follow. And that's what I did with Boast. That's what we did with Boast. We focused on building an offering that people loved and wanted to pay for and had high retention. We got to product channel fit. And ultimately, we were able to bootstrap to 8 figures and the funding came. We didn't go and out raising money. The funding came to us. Awesome. That's all I had. And thank you for joining us.
That was amazing, Lloyd. That was like so cool. And I think was a very, very inspirational story for like people in the audience that not everything is about VC funding, but it's really about like building a great product and making people pay for it. I love that part. So thank you so much for joining us virtually all the way from Canada. Hopefully next year
I'm actually in New York City right now, and my home base is actually San Francisco. So this is a funny story. Although most of our team is in Canada, I'm based in San Francisco. Previous companies I did out of San Francisco, and I realized it's very expensive to scale and bootstrap a company out of San Francisco. So we got about 100+ people 70 of them are in Canada. We got a small group in Romania and Bucharest as well.
All right, then I hope next time we can have you join us here in Cluj, and we'll show you the beautiful country that Romania is in person.
I'm coming there in person for sure. If you
Awesome. Thanks so much, my man. It was great having you here.